Hey guys, I am back from the 2023 BC Open. Took a little while for me to get my recording stuff set up and everything. It's been a little while since I've done one. It's only been a couple of months, but um, some of my things were out of alignment and everything, so I fixed those up. You may notice that I've up here, I've kind of changed the layout of things a little bit because I always used to have to fuss with that every round, and it took me like half an hour every time. It was maybe not half an hour, but like 15 minutes, and it was annoying. So let me know what you think about this new layout up here, or if you have any suggestions on how I could improve it. I think it's slightly better than it was before, but it still seems a little bit wonky. So if any of you have good design skills or anything, let me know how I could adjust that, or if it's too distracting with the blue in there now, let me know. Um, yeah, so as I mentioned, I came back, what was it, yesterday? No, it was, I came back Monday night. It's currently Wednesday, but I came back at close to midnight. Um, Incidentally, my throat was nearly perfect, like my voice, the whole time I was there. So I don't know if it's like an environmental thing where I am, like it's dusty here or something, or if it's just I wasn't napping there. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I don't know, but my throat felt really good while I was out. But now it's starting to act up again. So, I mean, that's why I haven't been streaming. I kind of almost quit streaming just because of how much havoc it was wreaking on my throat. I'm seeing an ENT. I'm getting way off topic here, but I'm seeing an ENT in April. Hopefully, that will shed some light on some of these issues. Um, but it's just kind of interesting that during my little trip, I felt much better. So, yeah, I arrived a day early to this event. By the way, in some of my past tournament recap videos, I took some B-roll of like the tournament playing hall and the city and so forth. In this tournament, I only have like a couple photos. It was mostly because I didn't really have time for that stuff. I really had a lot of work to do, which I was, apart from eating, finding a place to eat after my games, I was really working into the night and in the mornings to help pay for the trip because it would cost me easily $1,000, probably more like 1,100, possibly more. So I was working during all my free time pretty much, and therefore I didn't really have time to take any footage. The other reason I didn't is because I've been to this same venue like, I don't know, eight or nine times before, and you've kind of seen the same thing. It's nothing new. The only new thing about this is that there were 319 players, so there was a crap load of people, excuse me, at this tournament. Oddly enough, though, even though we broke the previous year's numbers by about 110 players, it looked almost the same number of people as last time. I don't know why it seemed that way, but it did. I guess the ballroom is just a really huge room, and it can accommodate a lot of people. Now, in a couple of tournaments from now, I talked to the organizer, and he's predicting maybe 350 players. So maybe then that's when I'll start to notice, a great difference in the number of people there. Okay, so let's get on into the game. That's all boring stuff, right? I've got all my, let's not reveal anything, but I've got all my score sheets here. I've already analyzed them, not in super detail, but I've added them into my software programs and everything, and I've done all them. So all I have to do is crack out these videos now. I think these videos are fairly popular in terms of the videos I do create out there. So if you do like it, I don't know if this helps the YouTube algorithm or anything, but yeah, if you give it a thumbs up, if you enjoy it, or leave a comment, maybe that helps my metrics. I don't know. But the more subscribers I get, the more likely I am to invest some money to go to these tournaments. So it does matter to me. Okay. Well, okay. Sorry about that big spiel, but let's get into the game. So I was paired up in the first round against Ryan Leong. And I should mention that there was only one round where I was able to prepare for my opponent because the pairings just weren't up and I was busy with work. So this was not one of those rounds. I had a score to settle with Ryan because I actually faced him, I think it was back in 2019, which was my second tournament as an adult. And so I was still, I was still kind of learning a fair bit. My opening theory was not so great. And he beat me in that game. And so I was hoping to avenge that loss, essentially. As you can see over here, my opponent was rated 1901 CFC, which is about 1900 USCF, and his FIDE rating was 1886. The other thing I was really hoping to get in this tournament, because I played up in the Premier section, this was a FIDE rated tournament. I do not have a FIDE rating. So what I needed, one of my goals for this tournament was to play at least 5 opponents that were FIDE rated and to get a score of at least half a point. Because if I did that, then I would be, I should get a FIDE rating. So that was my goal. And my first opponent was FIDE rated, so I was hoping to get a score against him, either a draw or a win. Let me just backtrack a little bit. So I stayed in a cheap hotel. Just to add some context, here's a photo of what I ate for breakfast, just to make things somewhat interesting. So just a continental breakfast. And how do I do that here? Boom. So that's what I grabbed. I call these egg pucks because they look like a hockey puck and kind of taste like one. I tried to get some protein just to give me enough energy to get through the round. And then I made some toast. I learned from this first attempt, I like a darker toast. To me, this is more like bread. So in subsequent days, I slowly got it darker. I actually accidentally picked up margarine instead of butter. And I got a yogurt, which had a lot of sugar, but I don't know. I kind of felt like it. And some sausage and water. Okay, you've seen food before. Yeah, okay, so let's get going. And make sure I pop into the right window. It's a good thing I checked things before I started recording because my microphone was not actually set up since I last recorded. So it's a good thing I checked. I'd be so pissed to have to record this whole thing again. Oh my God, I would be so pissed. Okay, so I was black. Wait, I was not black. Okay, there we go. I was white. Okay. And I've got notes here on the side, which you might see me reading from time to time. So I played e4, and I might go through this fairly quickly. By the way, we kind of played the same thing that we played 4 years ago. So, because I was white that game as well, I believe. I think. I might be wrong, but I think I was. And yeah, we just have a Sicilian, and it becomes a Najdorf Sicilian. Okay, so I'm not talking too much about this. If you're watching this video and you want more context about this, I'm not going to bore everybody with explaining all this. You can just look up the Najdorf Sicilian. And I played Bishop E3, the English attack of the Najdorf. This is all just theory. So again, I'm not really just talking about it. It might make the video a little bit short, but I'm sure most of you have seen this a million times. So I just feel the need not to talk about it. This is all mainline theory. And then he played B5, which surprised me. Because this is not a great move, and we're only on move 9, and my opponent is 1900 national and close to 1900 FIDE, and it's a strange move for someone of his caliber to play, because it's not like an interesting sideline that is sharp and can cause issues. It's really, I think it was a mistake. I think he played it too soon and he actually just forgot basic theory here. That's my assumption. If he, Ryan, if you ever watch this video, let me know. But I think he just messed up because, knight bd7 is really the main line there, or you could castle first. But yeah, b5 is just not a great move. It gives white a decent advantage. Unfortunately, as you will see in the later rounds, I did not play well this tournament. And this is what I had predicted going in. Because I've just been so busy with work. I've not been playing that much. And I'm kind of rusty. And so I did not penalize this move as I should have. Really, the best move here is a4. That's the Stockfish's top move. And I forget what the eval was. I think it's getting close to +1 with Stockfish 15.1. It might be like 0.8 or something, but it's a pretty sizable advantage. So the move I played is not like a blunder, but I think it's like maybe 0.3 or 0.4 evaluation wise. Whereas a4, again, I could have had a much better position. So we both kind of screwed up here. So I played, I castled. And the reason I castled is because I confused this with a very similar position where black, I think he plays knight bd7 first and then b5, where we can then just transpose into the main line. So again, castling there's nothing inherently wrong with it. White is still in a nice position, but a4 would have given us an advantage. So he plays knight bd7, and I played knight d5, and he took on d5 with his bishop, and I took with my pawn, and he plays knight b6. And again, I'm sorry if I'm going too quickly. I don't know. I've just had these positions so often. I just feel that this is all pretty much, there's not much to think about here. Like, these are all just common moves in these types of positions. I took the knight because if I don't take the knight, well, he's threatening to take on d5, and there's not really anything I can do about that. So taking the knight is pretty much forced. Otherwise, we're going to lose d5. And he took with the queen, and I played knight a5. Again, a very, very common theme in these positions. Essentially, we're blocking black's a pawn and stopping his pawn storm. And more importantly, maybe not more importantly, but equally as important, is we're threatening to go into c6, which is a nice square for our knight and kind of annoying for black. He actually thought here for a bit. Let me just check. Move 13. Yeah, I mean, not super long, but he thought for 5 minutes here. And it kind of looked like he was trying to remember theory here. He didn't seem super comfortable. He played rook c8, which I think is main line. The line we're playing right now is not super common, so there's not that much theory on it. I continue with knight c6. And I think this was his original plan. And I think that sometimes you can just read a person's expressions. Excuse me. I think he didn't think I could play knight c6. Wait, he might have thought here as well for a while. Yeah, he thought actually a very long time on the next move. He thought for 15 minutes on the next move. So this confused him because he probably thought that I couldn't play knight c6, which is why he played rook c8, because he probably thought that he could take on d5 with the idea that if I take on e7, wait. Sorry. No, I mean, I think, sorry, I did that backwards. I think he thought that I couldn't play knight c6 because if he took on d5, that I would take back with the queen, and then he could take my knight on c6. Wait, sorry, am I still confused? Hang on, why am I confused here? Yeah, sorry, yeah, it's his turn, right? So I think I'm still recovering my sleep from the tournament. If he took on d5, yeah, I think that he thought if I took with a queen, then he would just take my knight and he wins a pawn. But he overlooked that I could take on e7. That's what I was trying to say. So he took here, and I took the bishop. And this is, I think, what he overlooked. But I mean, this is still fine. But it's just that he's not winning a pawn essentially. So we traded on d6, and I prefer white here. I would take white. We have the bishop, and the pawns are pretty much equal. There's a 4-3 on the king side, and a 2 versus 3 on the queen side. But I have an active rook. I have a bishop. It's probably very equal, but I still prefer white here. And he played knight c6, and this is still actually theory. Including a Liko versus, or Leko, I don't know how, Liko, is it Leko? Versus Anand game. I didn't actually know this theory line, but the moves were all pretty much forcing, more or less. I played bishop e2, just trying to connect my rooks and develop the bishop slightly. He plays king e7. I brought the rook down. I didn't bring the other rook in because I think because of knight d4. Yeah, so I brought the rook back to d2. He plays rook c7. I played rook hd1. He brings rook to the h rook to the c file as well to battery up. And I just get off of the c file to relieve some of the pressure. So here I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, my opponent is 1900 and over the board. I think he's around 20 years old, and I'm holding my own here at least. Well, not at least, but I'm certainly holding my own. The position is equal, and he outrates me by about 300 points, and so I'm feeling quite happy here. He plays knight d4. Played bishop d3. Played g6, which was a good move. Just starting to reduce some of my bishop's scope. I kick out his knight with c3 and also give my bishop a little bit of some more maneuverability. He retreats to e6. I tuck the bishop down and give my rooks the open d file. He plays h5. And all of these moves are, so far Stockfish is happy with all of our choices, or both of our choices. Apart from that b5 in the opening, I think everything was pretty much perfect. I played a3, which the computer also likes. I'm just putting my pawns on dark squares because I have a light squared bishop. And it also secures b4, because b4 is a threat. Like black could play b4 right now, for example. And that causes some headache for me. So a3 was kind of dual purpose. And here my opponent played h4, which was okay, but the computer kind of wants black to keep prodding on the queen side. I only looked at these games fairly briefly. I mean, maybe not briefly, but there's certainly more detail that I could have been that I could have looked into. But I remember, I think even like a5 was an idea, or rook b8. I don't have the engine open when I'm analyzing the games. I'm just going from memory. But I think there were ideas like this, and then to try to crack this open, something along those lines is what the computer suggested. But it's not a big deal. h4 is still okay. I played rook d6. And here, I remember thinking here for a fair bit. I was really looking at rook d5, which is the top engine move. And it was slightly better, but I didn't know how I was going to continue after rook c5. And then if I give a check, for example, I mean, I think I was planning if the king goes to f6, then I put the other rook on e1. But even then, the rook on d7 though, I didn't know what I was doing with it, and I was too scared to kind of frolic over here. So for example, rook d5, rook c5, rook d7, king f6, and then if I go king b7, or king a7, I was a little bit worried about, his knight coming in and then maybe trapping my rook. It seemed unnecessarily risky for me. So I brought it here instead, rook d6. He plays rook c6. I give a check. King f6. Bishop b3, and this was, my plan to kind of x-ray this square here on f7. It's nothing, it's not a big deal, but it's something that he has to worry about. And I think it did kind of worry him. I'm seeing how long he spent on this. I mean, just 3 minutes, but the point is that I'm the one attacking, and that's what I like to see here. He played rook 8 c7, and I traded. And remember, I'm totally fine with a draw. He outrates me by 300 points, and I just want to get a score against a FIDE rated opponent. If I get a draw, then I'm on my way to becoming a FIDE, to getting a FIDE rating. Even if I lose my next 4 FIDE rated games, I will get a FIDE rating. So I was not scared of a draw here. In fact, I welcomed it. So rook d6, just putting more pressure on his a pawn, and he's pinned here. So he gets out of the pin with king e7. I played rook b6. Here I'm not as scared. Remember before I said I was kind of scared about bringing my rook back. Here I'm not as scared because his other rook is gone, and I don't know. I have more escape squares as I did previously, so I was not scared to play rook b6. He plays knight c5, protecting his a6 pawn. I play bishop c2. Just I don't want to trade. I thought about letting him, like playing something like king c2 and letting him just trade, but I thought, I have a bishop, why trade it off? He plays rook d7, and I played king c1. Now, I think this was a slight inaccuracy, and I'm reading my notes here, even though it's by far the most natural move. But yeah, this allows a bit of a tactic. Of course, you can feel free to pause the video if you want to try to find it. It's not like a major tactic, but it's a bit annoying. Okay, so the move that black could play here is knight d3 check. And it's an interesting move because it threatens knight e1, which forks my bishop and g2. And if I take on d3, I guess I can show it to you. So if I ignore it, again, this is the threat when I can't stop both threats. And if I take it, this is actually, I think this was still equal at this point, but it would have given me a lot to have to deal with. And the point is, black is now threatening to play h3. So it's my turn, I think, right? It's white's turn here. So if I were to grab the a6 pawn, for example, I think black can just play h3. And if I take it, he can just gobble up my pawns like this. And this, again, this would be interesting. I'm not sure exactly what the best way for black to proceed is. Maybe like this. Like, it's a bit of a race. So it would have been a lot to, it was equal, but it would have been a lot for me to have to contend with again. Or even here, maybe he starts pushing, oh no, I mean, even here, he might just start pushing the pawn, actually. It might kind of transpose. But yeah, you see what I mean? So it would have given him a lot of interesting play. And if I didn't take the pawn, if I just like blocked it, or not blocked it, but advanced my G pawn, this is still going to, this might even be, now I'm probably losing. In fact, I have to be losing here. Yeah, and I don't really have any other options there. So that would have been a really interesting way for black to proceed, but he didn't play that. Instead, he played rook d6, and I traded. And here I played a move which, after the game, my opponent told me he thought this was a mistake, and this is why I lost the game. I didn't really agree with him at the time, but it turns out I was correct, and this is the top engine move. So I played b4, and he. Did I just give a spoiler? I might have just given a stupid spoiler. Okay, but yeah, if I did, yeah, I'm sorry about that. So I played b4 to kick out the knight, and I wanted to put my pawns on dark squares just so my bishop has more maneuverability. And yeah, my opponent thought that this was weakening for me because my pawns are kind of fixed against his two pawns. But the computer liked my move. He plays knight e6. I played bishop b3. And he played f5. And let's just see how much time we have at this point. I was down to 19 minutes and he had 22 minutes, so pretty equal. And then this was a crucial point. Let me just read my notes here. So I knew that this was a critical juncture. And I blundered. As I say, I made a lot of mistakes this tournament. So I traded on e6. And this is a critical blunder because my a3, b4, c3 pawn setup forces my king to defend both, c4 and my kingside pawns. And I thought for 7 minutes before making this choice, I knew it was a critical choice. I mean, I'm not that dumb. But I still ended up taking it. What's funny is that this has been a few days later now, and I don't remember thinking about this move that much. And like, I should have been thinking about it more. I was, even though I thought for 7 minutes, I probably should have thought longer. This was a really critical decision. And I shouldn't have made that trade. Again, because the problem is that my king always has to babysit this square. And at the same time, deal with the 4-3 majority on the king side. So that was a big mistake on my end. So he recaptured. I played king d2, king d5, king d3. And this is what I had calculated, and so I thought I was fine here. He plays e4 check. And here, this is one of the few moves I made this tournament that really bothered me. There were a few times in this tournament where in my head, I knew exactly what I wanted to play. And in this position, and this is what I had planned even when I took the knight, I wanted to take the pawn. but my hand touched my king. And I think the reason that happened is because I was all set to play f takes e4. I was just waiting for my opponent to move. And then while I was thinking, I'm like, I wonder if king e3 also draws. And but I was still set and loaded to play king or f takes e4. But for some reason, my hand, went with that alternative idea I was thinking about, and I ended up playing king e3. And I was so angry at myself for making that stupid move because I was about to draw 1900 here. I'm just reading my notes here. Yeah, it's pretty much what I just said. Yeah. Apparently, though, both moves were actually losing, but it still doesn't really matter to me because the point is I had planned to take on e4, but I played king e3. So at least, in hindsight, both moves were losing. And then he played g5, which is actually a blunder. And this allows white to draw now. It's kind of a strange move that he played, but I might have actually confused him with king e3 because I played it pretty confidently. And maybe he thought like, oh, maybe that draws or something. So g5 is, it's a blunder and allows me to draw. I think the best move, if I remember correctly, was just king c4. Okay, so I took on e4 now. He takes back. And I played g3. He plays h3. And then I made another massive blunder. At least this time, it wasn't my hand moving a different piece than what my brain had planned. It was just a straight up blunder. I think the reason I made it was I was a little bit pressured on the clock, or I felt pressured. I had 11 minutes and he had 17. It sounds like a crap load of time if you just play online, but over the board, for me at least, that I'm feeling time pressure even at 11 minutes because writing down the moves for both sides, and it can snowball. Like if you get down to like 4 minutes, that can snowball so quickly into incredible pressure. So I was already kind of feeling that, but there's still no excuse for this blunder. It was like I would never make this blunder online, or I maybe like never say never, but it'd be extremely rare for me to make this blunder online. I played g4. You probably guessed it. But g4 just puts me into zugzwang. So pretty much, I think any other... No, there was only one move that draws here. But yeah, so let's just look at g4 first. So I played g4, and he plays king e5. And then I'm in zugzwang, right? So because I can't move anything, so I play c4. He takes on c4, and let me get back to that because I want to circle back to an interesting line here. So instead of g4, white can draw only by playing king d2. And the lines after this are actually pretty interesting. It's still a little bit tricky. You got to be accurate here, and I'm trying to go off memory again. I don't have the engine running, so. Oh boy, I'm probably not going to remember this correctly. I'm trying to remember how this draws, but there's a bunch of interesting lines here, which I'm sure I'm going to mess up. So let's say king c4. And I go back. Okay, yeah. So I think this is one of the lines, and this draws, I believe, still. And then I think there's a very interesting line. Like this was one of the interesting lines that we don't. Wait, no, because I think black had a better way to defend. So I think here, I think black can play g4. I think that's a better way for him to defend. And then if we do this. Now, when I was looking at this with the engine, I was surprised because it's natural to take on h3, right? Because we grab another pawn, and either way, our king has to move to promote, right? So why not take a pawn? And it's not like we're going to get checked anywhere, so it shouldn't matter where our king moves. But this, I believe, loses the game. We have to actually move our king in this direction. And I'm trying to remember why. And I'm hoping, I think let's see, I might be remembering the lines wrong. Let's just see, oh yeah, it's because black's king can now actually stop our pawn. So black can actually go back, like if we just keep running, he's in the square of the pawn, right? And can stop the pawn. And then meanwhile, his pawns would. So that's the issue. That's why here you actually don't want to take the pawn. You want to go and protect our pawn to promote. So it's, if this was like if I only had a minute left here, I might have just grabbed the pawn. So there were a few interesting lines like that here where white still actually had to be accurate. It was kind of interesting. But getting back to the actual game, I played c4, he took back. I played a4, and he played c3. And suddenly, I'm like, wait a second. Like, I might actually be able to draw here. At this point, well, it's the same time control. Okay, I mean, same time left. So I played b5. He goes AB, and actually, and around this point, I actually thought, wait, like I might actually be winning here. I was making my moves really quickly because I was, yeah. So I actually, for like 20 seconds or something, I actually thought I might be winning. And so this is how things proceeded. I think once he took here, that's when I realized, wait, no, I'm not. Because I for a second, I thought he was outside of the square for some reason. I was not sharp this tournament. But I thought I might be able to just run the A-pawn. But I couldn't. And then I didn't resign here because I thought there might be, because there's some cases where a king can stop two pawns if they're just one file apart. But so I played on with here a little bit and try to get his king farther away. I know I can't take this way, right? But my plan was to well, not that exact route, but was to do this. And since his pawns are one file away, I believe that works. The problem is his king is still a little bit too close. I think if his king was one square farther away, I think I might actually draw that. I would have to set that up. I'm not 100% sure, but let's pretend. Let's pretend it is. Let's pretend it's here right now. And so we go here, he comes in here. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, we still would lose, I think. Yeah, we'll probably still lose. However, if there weren't other pawns here for him to grab, that might have been a draw if his king was here and there weren't these pawns here. That might be a draw. So that's why I didn't resign. I played king 2, but then once he played king c6, then I did resign because I realized his king will be able to defend the pawn in time. So I lost the game. This felt really bad, and I was pretty tilted about the loss because I made a few mistakes, but the two big ones for me were. So this was a mistake. This was actually a critical mistake that I didn't realize at the time, and for that reason alone, I deserved to lose the game. But the reason that, first of all, this was the big thing that really bothered me. When I had totally planned, my brain wanted me to play f takes e4, but my hand played king e3. That was just silly. And it actually happens again later in the tournament, I think 2 more times. Yeah. And then, so that was one. And then the other one, no, maybe that was just a big one because, what was it? Because hang on, where was the other mistake I made? Oh yeah, so instead of, what was it? Oh, I played g4. Yeah, so instead of g4, I had king d2. This was the other big mistake because it's so obvious that this is that this just puts me into zugzwang. There's such a silly blunder. I mean, in the players rated that are playing in the under 1,000 section, they wouldn't make this mistake, or most of them wouldn't. It's just such a terrible blunder. But the time pressure got the better of me. So that was round one. Didn't get a score against a FIDE rated opponent, and Ryan is now 2-0 against me. I was really hoping to avenge that loss, and it was just frustrating because I held him to a very basic draw, and then I just screwed up at the end. So very frustrating, but that was what happened. So that's it for this video. I will have round 2 up for you soon. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you for watching.